Ukrainian drones are striking Russian oil facilities and changing the geography of the conflict. Euronews reports. Ukrainian long-range drones built in underground workshops have launched a series of strikes against Russian oil refineries, fuel depots, and military logistics centers, crippling energy infrastructure and forcing Moscow to impose restrictions on fuel supplies. In secret locations in western Ukraine, under cover of darkness, columns of attack drones are forming, launching from makeshift runways and heading deep into Russian territory. According to those involved in the operation, some models are now capable of flying up to 1,000 kilometers, significantly expanding their strike radius compared to previous stages of the campaign. Drones are evolving, says a commander known by the call sign Fidel. Instead of flying 500 kilometers, they now fly 1,000. A successful operation requires 3 factors: drones, people, and planning. We want to achieve the best possible result. For us, this is a sacred mission. Many drones are manufactured domestically from parts supplied by a wide network of workshops. One of the most common types, the Luti, is simple in design and maintenance: a sausage-shaped body, a single propeller, and a triangular tail. This simplicity and low cost, approximately $55,000 per unit, allow the Luti to be mass-produced. According to Western analysts, attacks on energy infrastructure had a noticeable but not devastating effect. A review by the Carnegie Endowment think tank counted at least 16 major refineries hit by drones, representing approximately 38% of the country's nominal oil refining capacity. At the same time, most refineries restored operations within a few weeks, and production was balanced by surpluses and inventories. The International Energy Agency estimates that the repeated strikes have reduced Russia's refining capacity by about 500,000 barrels per day, leading to domestic fuel shortages, local rationing, and export restrictions on diesel and jet fuel, even as global oil production has remained stable. Kiev is reporting real supply losses. President Volodymyr Zelenski stated that, according to Ukrainian estimates, the Russians have lost up to 20% of their gasoline supplies as a result of drone strikes. Experts call this a logistical campaign. The attacks force Russia to disperse supplies, redeploy reserves, and strengthen air defenses far from the front. For most of the war, Russia operated under the assumption that its own territory was secure. That's no longer the case, notes Adriano Bossoni of the RAIN research firm. Ukraine is also demonstrating its ability to operate autonomously by launching its own missile drones without the need to import long-range weapons from Western partners, an important development given the blocking of certain types of weapons. However, every mission carries risks. According to the organizers, less than 30% of drones reach their target, so careful planning and extensive equipment resources are critical. We are paying for this with our own lives and the lives of our friends, says Fidel, emphasizing that the current campaign is part of the struggle for the future of future generations. War veteran and retired Ukrainian Armed Forces Major Oleksiy Getman believes that strikes against symbols of power in Russia, for example, the Kremlin or the Ostankino television center, could have a powerful emotional and political impact on Russian society. At the same time, he believes that from a military effectiveness standpoint, it is far more beneficial to target industrial and military infrastructure, factories, oil refineries, and other facilities that ensure the enemy's combat readiness. There is increasing dissatisfaction with Putin's policies among Russia's top-ranking military officers. More and more officers are openly questioning the strategy of war against Ukraine, calling it disastrous for the army and Russia itself. Is discontent with Putin really brewing among top officers in the Russian military? Can we talk about a real rift between the professional military and the Kremlin's political leadership? This is the question Charter 97 asked Ukrainian politician and former Verkhovna Rada deputy Borislav Bereza. Experts said that this information is not confirmed, but has the right to exist. But what I know for sure is that the prisoners, both officers and soldiers of the Russian army, clearly comment in their testimonies on what is really being discussed. Ukraine cannot be defeated. The destruction of Russian troops is underway. In fact, they say that soon the place of Russian men will be taken by others. This is what the soldiers and officers are discussing. Moreover, they say that victory over Ukraine seems fantastic to them, given that Ukraine is being helped by the whole world. And the most interesting thing they say is that even if Ukraine were defeated, the war would continue and they would not return home. That is, Russian soldiers would continue to suffer. This, by the way, is understood by all the captured officers and soldiers who testify, and it is recorded. What the generals are talking about, I cannot say, because unfortunately no captured generals have been recorded so far, the expert added. According to him, history shows that it is the military that can become the protest force that can revolt. This history is not only according to Prigozhin, it is also the history of the exit from World War I. Soldiers took their overcoats, went home, and then joined the revolutionary masses in order to overthrow the government. And Russia has shown time and time again that this is possible. But now, at this moment, I don't see any preconditions for this to happen in the near future. In the long term, yes, it is possible. What's more, the so-called participants of the SWO who return home show that they are dissatisfied with the way they are met. They are dissatisfied with what is happening, and when they return, they become deviants in their environment. After that, of course, they encounter the system, and the system begins to crush them. If there is a critical mass of such deviants, they can, of course, start some processes, especially since they know who to kill, are quite conflictual, and believe that the authorities have screwed them, which, by the way, is true. In the long term, this is possible. At the moment, there are no signs of revolt, unfortunately, he said. The expert recalled that money is the main motivator to serve in the Russian army today. If there is no money, there will be no motivation. The average Russian is not ready to die for the O0 cooperative, for the interests of Putin, the Rottenbergs, Peskov, Lavrov, and Patrushev. That's why the war has become an opportunity for Putin to contain this potential for protests, channeling it to the front, and they're grinding it down. Putin understands well in the long run that war for him is not only an exhausted resource, it is also a minimization of potential future deterrents to control the crowds. And the crowds, who are already beginning to feel the lack of funding, the lack of money, and the fact that virtually everything is going to war because social spheres are being truncated, and really only the military sphere is left to support. They are beginning to be dissatisfied with this kind of life. The latest Levada Center polls show that more and more people want the war to end and return to the period that was before, not realizing that it won't be like that anymore. Another thing is that quite a large part of the population is dissatisfied with what is happening and doesn't believe that it will be good in the long run if the war stays. So let's just say that anti-militarist sentiment in Russia is starting to grow. Even the idiots with Russian passports have realized that the deterioration in living standards is a consequence of the war that Putin unleashed, which they themselves supported. And now they have no one to be angry at but themselves. So they are looking for someone to take their anger out on. And here it would be good that the properly channeled negativity went into the direction of Putin and his entourage, he claimed.